we released a video which actually going to roll right into the lesson. But how to get your players to roleplay more. That's a very common thing dungeon masters are asking. Like, how do I get my players to roleplay more? How do I get my players to roleplay more? And we're like, well, we can teach you. And I think that's where Josh is going to take the baton here. So it's kind of like a DM thing. That's why we switched.
Yeah. Well, the other reason we switched is because just thought it'd be funny. But
Thought it'd be funny.
You guys will get used to that joke at some point, hopefully.
I doubt it.
But yeah, we're going to talk about how to encourage more / better roleplay. There's a lot of different ways to play this game, and there really is no right or wrong way to play it. Some people literally play for the combat and that kind of stuff, and they just want to roll dice and do the things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're playing a game like we're playing and you like the kind of style that this game is, or if maybe you're a fan of like Critical Role or something like that, and you just love how into their characters are, but when you're at the table, it's not really working out like that, here's some tips to just kind of encourage a little bit more role-playing in there. First thing I would say, voices. They can help. That is the most obvious way to just really get players like immersed, right? If you're doing some sort of, whether it's a funny voice or just changing just inflections and that kind of stuff, it helps, but it's not necessary. It's not the only way. If you're not good at voices, don't worry about it. Don't focus on that. If you like voices and you are good at voices, then get wild with it. Personally, I like how, especially like all the players at this table or like a bunch of the other games we've played, you can clearly tell when the character is saying something versus when the player is saying something. And that's a big thing for me. I like that. But the next way, and I think this helps even more than voices, I'd say is explaining your skill checks, right? Don't just say, I want to roll investigation, or I want to roll like my thieves tools or like anything like that. When a player does that, if you're the DM, ask them to explain it. Ask them to really set the scene for you and just be like, okay, well, yeah, when I do this, I'm looking around and checking the room. I'm rummaging through like the books and that kind of stuff. And to me, that helps you get more immersed. And when you're immersed in the game, you're going to be role playing more. That's just kind of, if you're immersed in it, it's going to feel more real. If it feels more real, you're probably going to treat it as if it's real, which would mean you're role playing, right? So explain your skill checks, and then DMs, try to emphasize and focus on things that are important to the players or important to the characters. And important to the players could tie into like the explaining your skill checks thing, right? So one of the examples that I've used a couple times in J&J videos is, say you have a player that has experience like hunting, right? So when your characters are in the Mistwood Wilds and they have to find something and track some sort of animal, and they need to find like food like that, have your player that actually knows how to do that in real life. Let them really explain it. And I'm not talking about like gory details and that kind of stuff and like it smells like decaying flesh and like whatever you want to say. Not anything like that. Just have them explain the process. Have them talk about how they look and they see the tracks and they see everything like that. I'm not an expert on that. I've never hunted before, but have them really do something that's important to them like that, something that they know about and are an expert on in real life, and explain it. It's going to give them a moment to shine. They're going to feel really cool, and it's also going to make the world feel alive for the other players, because they'll really get a good visualization of what's happening. Other thing is the other side of that, as like emphasizing things that are important to the characters, is if you had a session 0 and you made some characters with the players, and things that are important to their characters, tie those in. If there's something that's important to the character and you just kind of pepper that in, even if it's something as simple as a favorite food, right? you all have a favorite food. Every character has a favorite food or favorite drink. Every once in a while that pops up, and that's an exciting thing, right? That gives you a moment to, yeah, it gives Echo a moment to be like, but I'll have one of those, you know. And then,
those Domp noodles.
And it just little things like that really help.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things I would say is ask your players how their characters are feeling about specific things that are happening. Something intense just happened. Before you make them roll dice or do anything like that, just say, kind of give them like a recap, right? You just faced off against this guy. You just faced off against Freeman. He locked you in this room. He left you for dead. You're trapped here. What's going through Vale's head right now? What's going through Melly's head right now? That's going to give the players an opportunity to really think about what their character is going through and how their character would react to that. And before they move on and just explain explain what they want to do next, what would make sense for the game, they're going to have to actually think about, well, realistically, what is my character feeling right now? And that's going to help them get into their character's head. If you understand your character, you're going to be able to roleplay that character a lot better. Last thing I would say is, please, for the love of God, don't force it.
Yeah.
Don't force it.
Yep.
Like anything, if it's not coming up naturally and you're trying these things and it's not working, don't just try to force them to do it, because that's going to be a lot worse than just having less roleplay. If you feel like your players are not role-playing in a way that you want them to or anything like that, you feel like you're doing everything right, just have a conversation. Just be like, hey, you know, I'd like to see like a little bit more roleplay. I like that you guys are doing this, that, and the other thing. Like, do you feel like if there's something we could do to really like get into it or whatever? And just have a conversation, see what they say. Maybe that's not the type of game they're into, and you know, you just got to shift things around, and that's fine.
Absolutely.
Now, before we move on, does anybody have any tips about role playing for anyone? Anything I didn't mention, or you want to expand on something that I did mention, or you disagree with something that I mentioned?
I really like your explaining the skill checks point. And I know it really wasn't a skill check moment, but when Echo was singing the Star Child song, I remember feeling like I'm at the campfire right now, sitting where Vale is, and I'm seeing Echo sadly sing this song. Like, that helped for me. And this is a group I feel like kind of spoiled when it comes to roleplay, because I feel like it's really one of our primary motivations for playing D&D. Mm-hmm. But that was definitely a moment where I was like, I am so there, like right now. Like, it's just anything that, you know, it's about immersion, like you said. I love that.
Yeah, I think that's a great example too that I didn't really mention, but we did talk about in the video, which is just downtime and giving your players opportunities to have downtime. Gives them an opportunity to see who their characters are outside of combat and stuff like that. So even if it's just like expanding on a long rest more than just like, okay, you rest and now you wake up and, you know, you have half your hit dice back and this, that, and the other thing. It's okay, you're resting. I know Melly's cooking food. I know, you know, Vale's got his face in a book. Like, what are you doing? What's Echo doing? What is he thinking about before you actually go to sleep? And having that opportunity to, even if it's just in the long rest, or if you are in a city and you're able to go do your thing, figuring out what your character would do when they're not like fighting for their lives. That's going to give your character's personality. It's going to make you understand your character a little bit more. It's going to give you more opportunities for role play. So I think that's a great example. Jake.
Yeah, I agree. Evan, did you have something you were gonna say? I think.
Not really like an example or anything like that, but just kind of writing little things down like that. I mean, it obviously helps to do that up front, but then if you have those little moments where I have these with Echo a lot, where it's like, oh, actually, I think Echo would feel this way about this kind of thing. And it may not be something that he's directly involved with. Let's say it's a situation that another character is more directly interacting with. then you might just think for a minute, like, okay, how does my character want to interact with that? Or how would they interact with that? And just kind of like, oh, I'll write that down. He doesn't like this kind of thing. He's iffy about, like, he doesn't like his clothes being dirty. Even something like simple like that will influence a lot of things going forward.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, it's just detail. Just keep writing down details.
Absolutely.
Really
I think
good.
that's excellent. Yeah. Because role playing isn't like, it's not necessarily, those like big moments where, like you put the sad music on and like, you're talking about whatever crazy thing and like getting like all choked up and that it's also just being like, well, how strongly does my character feel about having wet socks? Like, is that something that he's gonna be really pissed off about, or
Yep.
is it something that he'll just like continue on his day?
Mhm.
Me just as a human, I absolutely hate wet socks, and I will walk around barefoot
the
anywhere
worst.
before having like a tiny wet spot on my sock.
If I could tell you how many fights Kim and I have gotten in because she spilled water on the floor, I'm like, now my socks are wet. Like, that's why I wear slippers all day. But it's just silly stuff.
Yep. But little things like that are personality, and that's real. And when you're giving your character personality like that, you're just giving yourself more fodder to roleplay with. More fuel.
Nice use of the word fodder.
Thanks.